Hello, class. It's me again, Victor Guerreri, and I'm a student here at Southwestern College of Professional Studies. Question to you is, why are fire trucks red? Obviously, you can see that in my opening slides and the little video, but that's a question that's been asked of me for years. If you've been watching the news, you know that here in the state of Kansas, about 90 miles to the west of where I'm at, currently by Wichita, we're in the middle of battling one of the largest grass fires in the state's history. As of a little bit ago, burnt well over 120,000 acres so far, and it's still going. We've sent resources out there. I've spent time out there. We've also had several other grass fires around the area, so I've been pretty busy this week doing that on top of my other job. This wasn't the speech I was going to give today, but in reflection over the week with everything that we've been going through, it brought to mind some of these issues, and because this is an informative speech, this is information that I've been asked over the years, so I'm going to pass it on to you. You can see three of my main topics are the history of the fire service, what Benjamin Franklin has to do with the fire service, and my last question and answer is, why are fire trucks red? So to get started, we'll talk about the history of the fire service. And it's a broad history that goes back thousands of years. And there's a lot of people that take credit for it, different times, different areas. There's a lot of history behind it. But as far back as we can recollect, or that history has documented, is that really the first organized fire service was during the Roman times. It was organized, but it wasn't professional as we consider professional. Today, we consider professional fire departments both volunteer, combination departments, and career departments. Years ago, in Roman times, what they did is they would make slaves patrol their cities looking for fires, and then they would have wells or pots filled with water. And if they spotted a fire, something out of control, they would go grab that pot of water and throw it on the fire and put it out. That's the earliest recorded history of anything to do with proactively trying to fight fires. Later on, the French, Napoleon Bonaparte, actually had a few of his military units as firemen, as a secondary job. When they weren't out fighting wars, they would organize and patrol Paris and some of the other French cities looking for fire. No fire prevention or anything like that, but they would patrol the cities, and that was part of their job, was to put out fires. Scotland, or Edinburgh, Scotland, is one of the first claims to having a professional fire department in Edinburgh. This was after London had established some fire brigades after their Great Fire, which was roughly 1666. But they were more clubs than they were a city or county, or as we see it today, based fire department. So there's a varied history there on when the actual fire service started, but we trace it all the way back to the Roman times. Now, Benjamin Franklin, amongst other things that he has done, being a founding father of this country, experienced inventor, we've all seen the kite and electricity and everything like that, but he's also given credited for being the founder of what we know today in the United States as the American Fire Service. And he lived in Philadelphia, but when he traveled to Boston, he saw that Bostonians were organizing clubs or group of men that their sole job was to, away from their work, respond to and patrol the streets for fires. We got to remember back then, everything was heated by coal or oil. There wasn't any fire prevention. We didn't have a great understanding of just how to take care of these things that we use to either provide light or heat in our homes or businesses and so on. So when he returned to Philadelphia, he, in his own newspaper, wrote an article to his own newspaper talking about what he saw in Boston and that he would like to see Philadelphia try and do the same thing. And he established the first society of firefighters in Philadelphia, that they would get together once a month. They would talk about what happened over the month, what they could do better, and how they could increase their tactics in surveying the city and walking around the city at night and looking out for potential fire hazards, because they didn't want another London, or these vast conflagrations, we call them, of multiple homes burning in half of cities, just like the Chicago fire and so on. So he's kind of credited to giving the original idea of a volunteer fire department or volunteer fire companies in the United States. And lastly, the biggest question, and a lot of times it's asked more of me by adults than it really is children, but why are fire trucks red? Obviously, the first answer everybody thinks of is, you associate red with hot associated with fire. So that's why fire trucks are red. They're associated with heat and with fire. And that's true to a point. We also have some lineage in the fire service where we go back that some of the crest that we use, the Maltese cross, which is here on my shirt, you associate that with the fire department. Well, the lineage of this cross, the Maltese cross, goes all the way back to the Crusades and the Hospitallers, or Knights of the Hospitallers. And the reason why they were called Hospitallers is because they were warrior monks, warrior priests. And they would not only take care of the wounded soldiers in the hospitals, which is where they got their name, the Hospitallers, but they would also go out and fight in the name of Christ. Well, part of their emblem was a red cross that they wore on their tunics, and it adorned their shields and everything else. And that became known as the Hospitallers. Well, after the Crusades and after the wars, some of the Hospitallers moved to Malta and built a huge fort. And from that fort, they then went on and battled with some of the pirates and so on around that area. And those pirates and so on would use fire to try and burn down their fort. So over the years, we've kind of taken on that lineage of the Maltese cross and the Knights of Malta, and applied it to the fire service. And that's kind of where the cross came from, and that's also where the association of red with the fire service had come from. Was the cross was red, the Maltese cross was red that they used, and we kind of inducted it into the fire service as red being associated with fire service. Now, in today's world, everything is, when we talk about fire prevention and fire safety, everything, your fire extinguishers, your fire pull stations that you see in your businesses, your fire trucks, your fire lanes at the hospitals and schools and malls and so on are all painted red. We associate that with the fire department. You'll see fire trucks all around the country that are different colors. You'll see them green, you'll see them yellow, you'll see them white. Fort Lauderdale, Florida, about 20 years ago, decided to paint all their fire trucks fluorescent orange. We did a study in the 80s on the different colors of fire trucks. And it kind of came down to that, because we associate red with the fire service, that not necessarily because it's a red truck that sticks out to your eye, it's just in the back of your mind, and over years as a kid and growing up, that we associate, when you see the color red, you think of the fire department. So that's why, between tradition and just what we as humans associate with the fire service, that's why the majority of the fire trucks that you see out there are red. Simple answer. It's got a little bit of history in it, lineage. In conclusion, real quickly, we talked about the little bit of the history of the fire service and where it came from, as far as organization and so on. We talked a little bit about what Benjamin Franklin has to do with the fire service, and we ended up with why fire trucks are red. I hope you learned something from this today. I hope it was informative. I hope everybody's having a good week. We're having a good week here. The winds finally died down. We're getting the control on the fires out west of here and north of us. And I hope next week is a lot slower and quieter. And I hope everybody's feeling better. getting over the crud that's going around, and have a good day. Thank you.